You meet someone new, and instantly, the chemistry feels undeniable. They text you good morning, remember your coffee order, maybe even quote your favorite movie. You think, wow, this is it. Finally, someone who gets me. At first, love feels like a dream. Butterflies in your stomach, late night conversations, and that magnetic pull that makes the rest of the world fade. But then slowly the cracks appear. What used to feel exciting now makes you anxious. What once felt like passion now feels like pressure. And suddenly you're left wondering, if this is love, why does it hurt so much? Here's the truth. Not everyone who looks like love is actually capable of giving it. Some people don't know how to love beyond themselves. Others cover their flaws with charm, promises, or passion. And then there are those who, no matter how much you give, will only take until there's nothing left of you. So today, let's pull back the curtain. We're diving into 8 types of people who will break your heart if you love them. Think of this as a little emotional survival guide, a way to recognize red flags before you invest your whole heart. Because love is supposed to grow you, not destroy you. Ready? Let's start with type number 1. At first, it feels flattering. They want to know where you are, who you're with, what time you'll be home. You think, wow, they really care about me. They might even say things like, text me when you get there so I know you're safe. Cute, right? But give it some time and suddenly those cute check-ins start feeling like FBI interrogations. You're explaining why you didn't reply fast enough, why you stayed out an extra 20 minutes, or why your best friend's name just popped up on your phone. Here's the deal. Control freaks mistake ownership for love. They don't see you as a partner, they see you as property. And it doesn't stop at your phone or your social life. They'll start commenting on your clothes, your career choices, even which dreams are acceptable for you to chase. The more you bend to keep the peace, the tighter their grip becomes. And the irony? The more you try to prove your loyalty, the less peace you actually have. You end up living on eggshells, editing your life to avoid their disapproval. Let's be clear, love is not a cage. Real love doesn't require you to shrink your world just to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. If your relationship feels more like house arrest than partnership, you're not being cherished, you're being controlled. Bottom line, if someone treats your freedom like a threat, they will break your heart because love without freedom isn't love. It's fear dressed up in devotion's clothing. It usually starts small. They tell you they forgot to call back, or they were just out with a friend. You brush it off after all, everyone slips up sometimes. But then the stories don't quite add up. The timelines get fuzzy. Their phone is suddenly glued to their hand like it's top secret FBI material. Here's the thing about chronic liars. The lies may start tiny, but they snowball. And before you know it, you're living in a relationship where truth is an endangered species. You can't relax because you're constantly double-checking, decoding, playing detective instead of being a partner. They'll often sugarcoat it with excuses. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to upset you. Sounds sweet, right? But let's be real. That's not about protecting you. It's about protecting themselves. The problem is, without honesty, there's no foundation. It's like building a house on quicksand. Sure, it might look okay for a while, but eventually, everything sinks. And no matter how deeply you love, you'll never feel safe when your reality is built on fiction. Trust me, love that requires you to hire an imaginary polygraph test isn't real love. You shouldn't have to scroll through texts like a detective on CSI just to feel secure. Because real love is messy, yes, but it's honest. And if you're with someone who can't even give you that, you're not in love. You're in a guessing game, and spoiler alert, you'll always lose. Ah, the commitment phobe. At the beginning, they're thrilling. Late night talks, butterflies that make you forget to eat, spontaneous road trips, it all feels like the start of something epic. They love the chase, and honestly, they're really good at it. But then, the minute the word relationship or future slips out of your mouth, you'd think you just suggested robbing a bank together. Suddenly, they're sweating more than at the gym. You'll hear phrases like, let's not label this, or the classic, I just want to go with the flow. Translation? I want all the benefits of love, without any of the responsibility. The truth is, you can't build a life with someone who always keeps one foot out the door. No matter how patient you are, no matter how much you reassure them, they'll find a reason to run the second things get real. And you'll be left stuck in relationship purgatory, not single, not committed, just waiting. Here's the heartbreak. You keep thinking, if I just love them enough, they'll stay. But love isn't supposed to be a hostage negotiation. If someone isn't ready to choose you fully, then they're choosing not to. Real love isn't afraid of commitment. It embraces it, because real love knows that building something lasting takes courage. So if you're always in a cycle of almost but not quite, you're not headed toward true love. You're just standing still with someone who will eventually break your heart by never truly choosing you. At first, their confidence feels magnetic. They talk about their dreams, their big plans, their incredible talents, and you can't help but be impressed. You think, wow, I've never met someone so sure of themselves. But give it some time, and you start to notice a pattern. Every road leads back to them. Your stories get interrupted with, that reminds me of when your struggles are met with, you think that's bad. Listen to what happened to me. Basically, you're not in a relationship, you're in a one-person show, and congratulations, you've been cast as the audience. At first, you clap, you cheer, you pour energy into their goals. But when it's your turn, crickets. Suddenly, your needs don't matter, your victories are brushed aside, and your bad days are a mere footnote compared to their endless drama. Here's the sneaky danger. You start shrinking. You tell yourself, maybe I'm asking for too much. You lower your expectations just to keep the peace. But love that requires you to erase yourself is not love, it's emotional starvation. The truth is, relationships can't thrive on a one-way street. Real love is reciprocal. It celebrates each other's wins, carries each other's burdens, and makes space for both voices. So if your partner treats you like a mirror to reflect their greatness instead of a human being with needs of your own, that's not a partner. That's a self-centered spotlight hog, and they will break your heart simply by never seeing it. They don't slam doors, they don't scream in your face, in fact, they might look calm, even sweet. But the real weapon? Twisting your emotions until you start questioning your own sanity. Picture this, you bring up a concern and they say, you're too sensitive. You set a boundary and they sigh, if you really love me, you do this for me. And when you finally stand your ground, they punish you with silence that cold. Punishing silence that makes you feel guilty for even having needs. This is what emotional manipulators do best. They flip the script. Every disagreement somehow becomes your fault. Every compromise tilts in their favor. You start apologizing for things you didn't even do, just to smooth things over. Slowly, you lose trust in your own feelings because they've convinced you your emotions are wrong. Here's the brutal truth. Manipulation isn't love. It's control in disguise. Real love doesn't weaponize guilt or fear. It doesn't make you feel like a bad person for wanting to be respected. And honestly, love should not feel like walking through a maze of emotional traps. You shouldn't have to decode every word to figure out what's safe to say. The tragedy of being with a manipulator is that you give and give, thinking you're saving the relationship, when really, you're just feeding their power. And the longer you stay, the harder it gets to see that the game is rigged and your heart is the prize they're draining. At first, their vulnerability pulls you in. They've got stories about exes who betrayed them, friends who let them down, bosses who never appreciated them. You feel compassion, even protected. You think, finally, someone who just needs to be loved the right way. But then you notice a pattern. In every story, they're always the victim and everyone else is the villain. Their boss? Toxic. Their parents? Unfair. Their exes? Monsters. And now, guess who's on the list? Yep, you. With a perpetual victim, no matter what you do, it's never enough. If you try to help, you didn't do it right. If you set a boundary, you're just like everyone else who hurt them. Before long, you're less of a partner and more of a caretaker, constantly apologizing for wounds you didn't even cause. Here's the hard truth. Real love requires accountability. Without it, there's no growth, no healing, no balance. A relationship where one person is always the hero and the other is always the villain? That's not love, that's a drama script with only one ending: heartbreak. The danger is you start believing it's your job to fix them, to prove that not everyone leaves. But you can't save someone who refuses to see their own part in the story. And if you stay too long, you'll realize you weren't their rescuer, you were just the next bad guy in their endless tragedy. At first, it feels kind of flattering. They say things like, "I just can't stand the thought of losing you," or "I love you too much to share you." And you think, "Oh, that's so romantic," but give it time. And that romance starts to feel like a chokehold. They get moody when you spend time with friends. They want to know who's texting you, even if it's just your cousin. They sulk if you do something without them, like you committed a crime by having your own life. Here's the problem. Jealous possessors confuse love with ownership. They think loving you means controlling you, and your independence feels like a threat. Before long, your world shrinks fewer nights out, fewer hobbies, fewer connections. What looks like closeness is actually confinement. And it gets exhausting. You start editing yourself, who you see, what you do, even what you wear, just to avoid their suspicion. But let's be honest, love isn't supposed to feel like you're on probation. Real love doesn't clip your wings. It lets you fly while trusting you'll come back. It's secure, not suffocating. If their affection makes you feel anxious, guilty, or isolated, then what you're experiencing isn't love, it's fear dressed as passion. And the heartbreaking truth? No matter how much they claim it's because they love you too much, possession always smothers love until nothing's left. They've got a way with words, don't they? "I'll change. I'll be better. I'll give you everything you deserve." And for a moment, you believe them. Hope lights up your heart like fireworks. You picture the version of them they've just promised, the loving, consistent, dependable partner you've been waiting for. But then, nothing. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass, and the same patterns repeat. The apologies come like clockwork, the promises stack higher, but the actions? Nowhere to be found. Empty promisers thrive on your patience. They know you'll cling to the possibility of change, that you'll keep forgiving because maybe this time will be different. But here's the truth. Potential isn't a relationship. Promises aren't progress. And hope, no matter how strong, can't hold a relationship together when reality keeps falling short. Every time they break a promise, a little piece of trust dies. And without trust, love has no ground to stand on. Soon, you're not in a relationship anymore. You're in a waiting game, holding on for a version of them that may never exist. Real love doesn't need endless speeches or rehearsed apologies. It shows up consistently through actions that match words. If you find yourself clinging to someday, you're not living in love, you're living in delay. And here's the harsh truth. The longer you wait for an empty promiser to change, the more you risk losing yourself in promises that were never meant to be kept. So here's the bottom line. These 8 types of people, the control freak, the chronic liar, the commitment phobe, the self-centered one, the manipulator, the perpetual victim, the jealous possessor, and the empty promiser. They all have one thing in common. No matter how much love, patience, or sacrifice you pour in, they will break your heart. Not because you're not enough, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because they simply cannot give you the kind of love you deserve. Real love doesn't drain you. It doesn't confuse you, and it definitely doesn't make you feel smaller than you are. Real love lifts you, strengthens you, and lets you be fully yourself without fear. If you recognize someone you're with in this list, don't beat yourself up. So many of us fall for these types hoping our love can change them, believing they'll finally become who we need. But here's the truth. Your worth is not proven by how long you can wait or how much you can endure. Your worth is proven by knowing when to walk away and choose something healthier. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 8 types have you dated before? And most importantly, what lesson did it teach you? Share your story in the comments because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this video gave you clarity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss the next conversation about love. Because at the end of the day, true love doesn't break you, it builds you.